Good day to everyone. My name is Kenneth Kuvale from the St. Eustatius Afrikan Battleground Alliance, working today with various organizations on the island, NGOs. One of them is the Station Roots Festival Organization, the Cultural Heritage Foundation Committee, among other organizations such as the Tourist Foundation. Today is a special day in the sense that we are here today not only to celebrate, but to honor our ancestors. Our ancestors who went through tremendous suffering and torment in the form of enslavement. Today we are here to memorize them, commemorate them, and go through with various speakers today who will elaborate on the enslavement of our ancestors, also in combination with our history, which was distorted and continue to be distorted. We also going to be elaborating today on the undignified excavations of our 69 ancestors who were excavated in 2021 at the Golden Rock, 18th century African battleground at the time. They are still lying in a place where they shouldn't be lying, which is called the Heritage House. So we are intent to have our ancestors re-earthed or reburied in a dignified manner on the 13th of November of this year. In this case, I would like to kick off the day by inviting Mr. Derek Simmons on the stage to go into somewhat which we will call tangible and intangible heritage in the form of music and otherwise. He will be speaking and taking us to a place back in time which most of us are forgotten about or have no knowledge about.
When I was a little boy, about 4 years old, no, it's okay. 4 years old, I was in the back of the yard having fun, digging in the dirt, and I was singing my heart out of a calypso I heard on the radio. Out of nowhere, my mother appeared, and I guess today's word you call it abuse. But having some kind of sense, I know that time wasn't, I don't know what the song is, I can't remember. It was knocked out of my head. When I know not to have that discussion based on our upbringing, to leave it alone. Many, many years after, as I get older, I asked the question, why did I get beat up? For what? I even didn't know it had to do with singing. She said that I was singing a song that is causing confusion in the community. I said, but how would I know that? I heard it on the radio. She said, you know better because you had a smile on your face. So, you know, but that was a passion for music. As I grew older, I was in elementary school. I was basically forced to take piano lessons, and really I didn't like it. I detested it, I didn't like it, but I did my best. And I learned something about music. And what I always encourage with young people, you going into music, learn an instrument. And probably a good instrument to start with is the piano or the keyboard, because from that you can branch off to different places, instruments. So, when I was going to school in Aruba, I said, you know what, let me continue in music. And I asked for a keyboard for my Christmas. Christmas morning, when I woke up, to my surprise, there was no keyboard, no piano, but there was a guitar. And that again turned me off, because my passion was I wanted a piano and I didn't want no other instrument. I took the guitar to Aruba and put it on the top of the press, and that was the history. I don't know what happened to that guitar, but that's where it ended. Now later in life, you're going through certain things, and I remember I had a passion to see things done right. I started the drum band. And when you start things, often what happens, you get more discouragement than encouragement. And they will tell me, what I know about drumming. You want to start something? I said, don't worry, this is the time, this is the place, and we're making a start. And when I look back at history, that was one of and on the radio, the young lady said she think the drum band was great. I thought so too. But in the meantime, we were able to share with young people the passion of music. Now, a calypso that I chose, I think is relevant to the message I'm trying to bring forward, is sometimes they use music to talk about things that are happening in the community, and they bring it through music. So this is a calypso. When I was young too, I enjoyed it very much, and I hope you all know it. I think some of you all from my generation. If you don't know it, I think you were born under a rock. Okay.
There's a diamond but high, the drum is fast, now we got cheese and grass. Imagine you on, jam on our load. So then, I change for a compliment. Smoke black on my road come. What you know about jamming? I did it from you. What you know about jamming? They got two of them, yeah. What you know about jamming? And I go down my on. What you know about jamming? Days come by, there's a jamming but high. The drum is fast, now we got cheese and grass. Imagine you on, jam on our load. So then, I should change for a compliment. Smoke black on my road come. What you know about jamming? I did it from you. What you know about jamming? They got two of them, yeah. What you know about jamming? And I go down my road. What you know about jamming? One Italia, one city man, one from Asia, one. What you know about jamming? On and on. What you know about jamming?
Yes, by lodging what they know about jamming. And that calypso was basically a protest of the Carnival Committee that time. And what I like about this song is they didn't really mention names, but based on the so-called nickname, you had to kind of wonder who they were talking about. And I have the names. Big Mouth Black American. I believe most people know who that person was. That was Mr. Charlie Arnold, from Charlie's place. The thing of it, Charlie was a station, but he went to America, became American, came back. And that's how they refer to him as the big mouth black American. Now you have the lady, a lady from St. Vincent. That was Chocolate mother. You know Chocolate, a hammer? Her mother, their mother, Nita, yes. But the thing of it is, she used to be very involved in queen shows, beauty pageants. She used to do the evening, the famous evening gowns. She was one of the seamstresses that contribute like that. But Walton say, what she know about jamming? They have two Arubians. Who the two Arubians was, Ingrid? The two Arubian was Gerald Lopes and Nita Lopes. How you know? You ask Gerald where you from. No, it's quite amazing, you know, you see people. So those two, they were on the Carnival committee, and I too was wondering who they are. They have a son named Private, very into Carnival, but based on the Calypso, what they know about jamming? One Trinidadian. Who's the Trinidadian? Trinidadian was DJ's Betty Lane's husband, Star. Yes. Come from a place, Carnival. What he know about jamming? One Sinket man. Trini. I always thought Trini was from Trinidad, but Trini is from St. Kitts, and we call him Trini. I call him the King of Kings because he also sang Calypso. So imagine what he know about jamming.
I would like to call Miss Natalie Nader to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the first time I'm doing this in English, so please don't be too hard on me. Today we are celebrating Emancipation Day of freedom. But what is freedom? What does freedom mean to you? According to the Oxford Dictionary, and that comes with a disclaimer, because English itself is a colonial language, so even the words we use to talk about freedom are not always our own. But according to the dictionary, freedom is the state of being able to act without hindrance or restraint. Is that what we got on July 1st, 1863? Forgive me for not knowing much about the history of Statia, but my parents were born in Suriname, so we share the same history. In Suriname, the enslavement of African people was legally determined on July 1st, on 1863, but for the next 10 years, our ancestors still had to work under pretty much the same circumstances, but they got a small pay. 10 years of state supervision. The Dutch were afraid of losing their property, and with that their income and prosperity. They wanted to be compensated for their loss and needed time to find new workers who had to be brought over from the east. But they were also afraid what would happen once the Africans were declared free. They might take revenge, or as they put it, cause chaos. Because living in freedom required discipline, And without the enslavers to enforce discipline on them, who knows what would happen? After this period of 10 years, some of the Africans bought their own land and became farmers, for example in the district of Para, where my family is from. The colonial government imposed high taxes on these African farmers, but the people of Para refused to pay. The farmers stood their ground, and that led to change. The past few days here in Stasia, I learned about your local hero, Thomas du Bourgogne, who also fought for freedom. And these are just two examples of how freedom wasn't given, it had to be taken. Some of our ancestors took their freedom as soon as they could. Some chose the ocean over captivity, others chose the unknown woods over enslavement, and others held on to their freedom in quieter ways, by keeping traditions alive, telling their stories, holding on to their identity as much as they could. And the work is not finished, not yet. And until it is, we have to find our own way to carry it forward. One of mine is politics. I truly believe that through politics we can bring change. But politics is never the goal, it's only a means, a tool to keep freeing ourselves and our people again and again. I won't pretend to know the details of station politics, but I know what it looks like when a colonial power still rules and when the people it rules over aren't truly part of the process, even though it concerns them most of all. As you know, in 2018, station was placed under state supervision. And I want to read a few words about this bill and look at the words that were chosen, because words have powers. This bill enforcing supervision stated, this bill aims to establish provision in connection with the gross administrative neglect of the governing body of the public entity of St. Eustatius. It is prompted by the advice of the Committee of the Wise for St. Eustatius, which examined the administrative situation in the public entity, and requested the Minister of Kingdom Relations. To end the situation of administrative neglect, the government proposes appointing a government commissioner who will provide for the governance of St. Eustatius until such time the government can be deemed capable of properly performing its duties itself. Maybe you agree with what was stated here, and maybe you don't. But what I find remarkable are the words that are chosen. They sound familiar, just like the state supervision back in 1863. Because African people would not be able to handle the responsibility that comes with freedom. It sounds like colonial hierarchy. But when it comes to freedom, when it comes to autonomy, when it comes to being sovereign, do you want the Netherlands to step in and take over every time they decide you're not doing it properly? Doesn't freedom also mean the freedom to make mistakes and to fix them yourselves? Don't get me wrong, I'm not getting involved in what your relationship with the Netherlands should be like. But you should fight for your rights, for equality, and for more say in the laws and policies that affect you. In the last parliamentary elections, less than 10% of the station people voted. And I want to sit at that number for a moment, not to tell you what to think about it, because only you know what that silence means. But I know this, when a community stays quiet, that quiet doesn't stay empty. Someone else fills it, whether or not it serves your interests. As Alice Walker once said, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. And there's another vote coming up in March for the kiescollege that chooses the Dutch Senate. And Stasia's vote is very small, but it's still a voice. And the voice you don't use becomes a voice someone else gets to use for you. Let me give you an example for why this matters. In 2020, a motion was filed in the Dutch Senate calling on the government to investigate whether slavery and the slave trade should be recognized as a law, as a crime against humanity. And this motion was postponed, and postponed again, and again, 5 times in 3 years, until it expired in 2023. It was never voted on and never executed. And it didn't die because the majority was against it. It died because no one kept pushing. One of the reasons no one kept pushing is because there's no representation of people of African descent in the Dutch Senate. No one to put it on the agenda. And this is what absence looks like. Not a vote against, just silence. And as I said before, silence doesn't stay empty. The Netherlands makes all kinds of decisions about you. For example, recently on the remuneration level of your political office holders, the people you do elect. And recently it was 2 of the few black members of the Dutch parliament who pushed for that to change. And those same 2 members, Don Seder, who's of Ghanaian and Surinamese descent, and Miguel Sedai, who's of Eritrean descent, also filed a motion calling on the government to work with Eustatius on an investment plan for this island support. That is not a coincidence. Ghana being colonized by the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British, the list goes on. Suriname being colonized by the Dutch and British. Eritrea colonized by Italy until the British took over. People who carry a piece of this history in their own family tend to recognize it in someone else's. Harriet Tubman didn't just take her own freedom and walk away. She went back again and again and brought others with her. And that is what representation is supposed to do. Not just a seat at the table for one person, but the door held open for the next. Members of parliament, even if they never set foot here on this island, can still shape decisions about its future, simply because they chose to look closely and care. Imagine what could happen if that same attention came from inside this room, from the people who live here every single day. Now you might think, what does this have to do with me? I'm not a politician, I don't sit in parliament, I don't write motions. But here's what I want you to understand. Politics is not where freedom begins. Politics is only an extension of what already lives inside a community. Representatives speak up for the well-being and the purpose of the people they represent, or at least that's what they are supposed to do. They don't create that purpose, they reflect it back. Because it is also what government is supposed to do at its best. Not to tell the community what it needs, but listen to what the community already knows it needs, and then make it possible. That gap between what the community knows and what the government does is exactly where self-determination lives or dies. So if you want better politics, we cannot only look at parliament. We have to look at our own circle of influence, our own space. And like freedom, that space is not always given. Sometimes you receive it, but more often you have to take it. The way Rosa Parks took her seat on the bus, and Shirley Chisholm took her seat in Congress. And the way the marchers at Selma marched for their right to vote. And that circle, that space, doesn't start out there with parliament, or even within our community. It starts right in the smallest but most powerful place there is, your own mind. And from there it ripples outward, into your family, into your community. Let me walk you through that cycle. It starts with you. What books do you read? What films do you watch? Whose voice do you let shape how you see yourself? Here's the truth. You can have the right to vote, you can have a parliament, you can even have full independence and still be enslaved if your mind hasn't been freed. That is what Bob Marley meant when he sang, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery." Gil Scott-Heron said it a little different, but he meant the same. The first change that takes place is in your mind. You have to change your mind before you change the way you live and the way you move. Before anything changes around you, something has to change inside of you. From there, the circle widens into your family. What names do you give your children? In Suriname, when slavery was abolished, some of the formerly enslaved people were allowed to choose their own family names. But many of them couldn't read or write, or fully understand what they were asked to do. So that choice wasn't always a real one. My own family name, Nede, is actually an anagram of Van de Ende, the name of the man who once claimed ownership over my ancestor. Even in choosing, something of that history stayed attached. So when you today choose to give your child a name that carries your culture, your language, your ancestors, that is not a small thing. that is reclaiming something that was once taken away. Then we are going into our community. What story does this island tell about itself? Whose history gets passed down at the dinner table and whose gets left out? When children here learn about Statia, do they learn about the people who survived slavery on this island, who rebuilt families and communities from nothing, who took their space when no one offered it to them? Or do they only learn the version written by the ones who held the whip? A community that doesn't know its own history will be told someone else's. And a community that is told someone else's history will always end up serving someone else's interest in someone else's space. This is what I mean when I say politics isn't only a means. It's only a means, never the goal. The goal is freedom, full freedom. Not just freedom written into a law on a piece of paper, but the freedom to think for yourself, to tell your own story, and to raise your children in the knowledge of who they are. So let's bring it back to where we started. On July 1st, our ancestors in Suriname were told they were free. But for 10 more years, they worked under state supervision, under the same conditions as before, because the man who once claimed they owed them needed to be compensated for their loss. The chains were not broken that day, they were rearranged. And maybe that's the real lesson of Emancipation Day. Freedom that is given to you on someone else's timeline, under someone else's conditions, is not yet self-determination. Self-determination is what happens after. It is what the farmers of Para did when they stood their ground against unjust taxes. It is what every person did who chose the woods, the ocean, their traditions, their stories, rather than accept the terms they were handed. So today, on this island, I ask you the same question. Is the freedom you have been given, the freedom to vote in an election where less than 10% show up, the freedom to watch the Netherlands decide your government is failing and send someone to take over, the freedom to wait on the Hague to decide what your harbor is worth, is that freedom? The freedom to act without hindrance or restraint? Take your turn now, like the people of Para did. Stand. I'm not telling you what your politics should look like. And I'm not telling you to vote one way or the other, or what your relationship with the Netherlands should be. That is not my place. But I'm telling you this. Don't wait for freedom or for space to be handed to you in someone else's terms. Take it the way your ancestors took it, in the stories you tell, in the names you give, the books you read, and in the votes you cast or refuse to cast. Because freedom was never really given to us on July 1st. It had to be taken, piece by piece, generation by generation, and it still does. Emancipate yourself, take your space, and then build whatever comes next together. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Thank you, Natalie. Next, would like to call to the stage, and they will be going into the subject of rather having a presentation in relation to the ceremonial community conversation in regard to the November 2026 dignified reburial of the 69 ancestors' remains. That will be Sister Xiomara Valentina. And is Sister Xiomara Valentina still present? Together, Sister Xiomara, together with, in combination with Brother Zimmerman. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Together with Brother Zimmerman. Yeah, go ahead. Please go and welcome Brother Zimmerman and Sister Siamala.
We're going to move around a bit. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I like to move around a bit because I see it's a big space and people are doing different things all at once. My name is Shomara Valentina and I'm the chairperson of the Statia Cultural Heritage Implementation Committee. And I'm here with Mr. Zimmerman and I will let him introduce himself to you.
Good afternoon, my name is Zimmerman, Jose Zimmerman. I'm assisting the committee with designing of the memorial space for the burial of our ancestors.
Okay, now this is a very, very important topic because we would like your input in regards to the reburial of the Golden Rock remains. Now I'm going to speak to this row here, and I see some people are seated at the back. I speak to everyone. Mr. Hooker, are you aware of the Golden Rock ancestral remains?
I've heard about it, yes, but yeah.
Okay. So I think almost everyone in this row are aware of the Golden Rock ancestral remains. Okay, so what are we going to be doing today? Yes, everyone can see this. I would like us to have a conversation about preparing the remains for the burial, the transfer from the Heritage House onto the truck because the remains are currently stored at the Heritage House. I would like your input in regards to the procession. I'll say some more about that. And we'll also talk about the ceremony, which may include libation. We are talking about trees, the role that trees play, music, dance, etc. Now, we plan to be burying the Golden Rock remains on the 13th of November 2026. So, November 13th, 2026. Now, when we were preparing this presentation, we were hoping for an interaction. It's not a lecture, so we are interacting with each other. So we talk about setting up some rules of engagement. We speak with respect, we listen without interrupting, and we do not have to agree on everything because this is a very sensitive topic. But the idea is that we gain an understanding of what we would be doing on the 13th. I have a question. How many plantations did Statia have on paper? How many plantations did Statia have on paper?
76 at that moment.
76 that we know of, right? Yes?
They're following us.
No, people are buying food, people are having their conversations, but we will continue to speak.
Okay.
Yes. 76 that we know of. Okay, now this question, I don't think anyone in this room knows this, but I may be wrong. What happened on the night of April 27th, 1844 in Statia? What happened on April 27th, 1844? Mr. Hooker?
The uprising.
Incorrect. What happened on April 27th, 1844? Miss Fleming, do you know? No? So I shouldn't walk towards you. No? Okay. I'm wondering if there's anyone who knows this. I don't think so. Mr. Zimmerman, do you know? I mean, you're not from Station,
No,
you're from
no.
Curaçao.
I'm not aware of what happened
Okay.
on that night. No.
Let's envision
Maybe you?
1844. Let's envision that. What do we think was happening on Station in 1844? What period was it? Yes. You were still enslaved. That is correct. So because I don't think anyone in this room knows what happened in 1844, I'm going to share the following. We are talking about our heroes, we are talking about ancestors, etc., etc. But I guarantee you, no one in this room heard about these names in school. No one in this room. No one. And the names are London, Friday, Rosaline, and her 6 children, and others attempted to reach freedom in St. Kitts. These were enslaved persons. So what did London do on that night? He got into this small fishing boat along with Friday. Rosaline was the girlfriend of London. And so they were sailing around the island, looking to see if there were any enslaved persons attempting to be free in St. Kitts. So they all got on this small fishing boat, made an attempt to go to St. Kitts. Do we know why they were making an attempt to go to St. Kitts? Do we know?
Slavery was abolished in St. Kitts already. Slavery was abolished in St. Kitts in 1838.
That is correct. Because there was a rule that if enslaved persons escaped from Station and ended up in St. Kitts, they would not be returned to Station. So they made a dash for freedom. But it was a dilapidated boat. As they were crossing the channel, the boat started to leak. So what did they have to do? They turned back and they came to Station. They came back. And in the morning of April 2027, they were captured. 2 of them received 50 lashes. 50 lashes. They did not make it to freedom that day. But we are seated here, we are eating. Look at this space. We are free to eat, to converse. These persons paid with their lives. Freedom, that's what they wanted. And as I'm saying, I'm sure no one in this room knew about this story before. And you can find it online. Land of Hope and Dreams, Slavery and Abolition in the Dutch Leeward Islands. So Rosalind and her children, we do not know what happened after that. But we know that slavery was not abolished in St. Eustatius until 1863. So we can only imagine, Papa Upu, you are a storyteller. We can only imagine what happened to them when they were recaptured. We can use our imagination. So may we never forget them. London, Friday, Rosalind and her children and others. There were 11 of them in that small fishing boat. Zimmerman, what do you think of that story?
So it means that slavery was abolished on the British Islands, but not on the Dutch Islands.
Correct.
So then the thing was try to escape the Dutch Islands into freedom elsewhere.
Exactly. But the good thing is some made it. Some did escape. Not this time, not on April 27th, but some made it. Okay?
It's the same thing in St. Martin, because people were trying to escape from Concordia to the French side in order to be free.
Also to Angola.
Yes, as they escape and reach France side, hey, I'm a free man.
So we have 69 remains that were dug up from the Golden Rock plantation. They are currently stored at the Heritage House. And our committee, we are tasked with engaging with the community about the burial ceremony. So I have something here written. In African tradition, cleansing the body can be a crucial rite, with elders or specified persons bathing the body with water, oils, and herbs as a sign of respect and readiness of departure. We have 69 remains. My question to you, what would a respectful preparation of the bones look like? Remember, these are ancestral remains. These bones are fragile. What could a respectful preparation of the bones look like? And how would we as stations feel about something like this, realizing that this is an African tradition?
It's from the entire continent of Africa.
Well, what we do know, at least from the West Africa. How would how would you feel about that as a station?
I'm for burial.
Yes.
I don't know if I believe
So you're for reburial, but you don't know if you would go through all these things. But what do you think about that? The fact that it is a traditional rite, a traditional process, and these are ancestral remains, and we are to prepare them. Do you think the station community would be open to something like this, or do you think people would be, oh, this is voodoo, this is obeah, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. Of course, everyone has their own thinking about it, but one of the concerns I have is I can understand if someone dies in Africa and then this tradition is applied. But these are persons that were already buried, and and because of the Golden Rock hit, their bodies were, okay, I'm going to call it exhumed. Is it then necessary to apply the tradition again? Because they have already been buried.
Okay. That's a profound question. Is it necessary to apply these traditions again? Before I give the mic to Brother Kenneth, you said again, they were enslaved. The circumstances under which they lived and died, those are things we need to put into perspective. The circumstances under which they lived and died. I am not sure that took place. So that's it. So anyway, Brother Kenneth, go ahead.
Before Brother Kenneth, are there people that think that our ancestors went through so many things already? Remember, they were dug up by the excavations here, sent to Holland for research, come back to the island in plastic bags. Right now we pass them over into wooden caskets that we build. Is it then necessary to take them out of those boxes again to make a preparation before they go to the last resting place?
Can I go ahead?
No, that's a question I pose like that.
Yeah.
For food for thought.
I would like to go into the question. First and foremost, what we need to understand is that our ancestors didn't come and arrive and say so by free will. They were forced. They were forced, and they brought their tradition in that enforcement at the same time. They never abandoned their traditions. Although we may think that at the time that they were enslaved, even though the enslaver forbid them from congregating, assembling. They found ways to be together and continue their traditions. Now, speaking about the remains, what went to the Netherlands, we need to make a kind of correction on that. The 69 remains never end up in the Netherlands. What happened is that they took samples without the consent of this community and took them to the Netherlands. And here's where the dignified, undignified, and disrespect part of the whole process comes in. First of all, you remove them from their resting place, undignified. Secondly, without engaging with this community, you decide to take samples and conduct your research onto them without any consent of this or involvement of the community. By the way, we are speaking about international laws which give the community the rights to decide on these processes as well. So the question here today, should they be reburied throughout these procedures? Well, we've been in contact with most of our ancestors who we are speaking about came from the region of the Congo of Africa. We've been in contact with clergymen in Benin, and whether or not you like it, the ancestors have spoken that there should be no research on their remains. They should be returned into the earth in a dignified manner. And so, well, you see there how they were spoken, here's where spirituality comes in, and a lot of that we don't know much about as a community. But we perform a lot of things in our daily life based on their practices without even being conscious of it. And I think Dr. Kimani spoke about that a bit today. So let me finish by saying, yes, that reburial needs to be in a dignified and respectable manner, honoring the ancestors in their traditional form, but at the same time taking into consideration their community and their expectations as well.
That means reopen the caskets again?
But as a woman, they are not in the caskets. They are in bags, stored, and actually, before the reburial, we take the bones and place them in the casket. So we still have to do that. So they all have to go in the casket, and the question then is, should there be some type of ceremony when we are removing them from the bags or keeping them in the bags and putting them into the casket based on African tradition? I'm gonna come to you, Brother Kilmani would like to say something, and then I'm gonna come to you, Brother Hooker.
Thank you, sister. I've got two quick points to make. The first one is, our ancestors were taken out of their graves and desecrated. You cannot simply rebury them and expect to make things right. They have to be reburied under appropriate African rituals and ceremonies. There can't be any doubt about it. It's illogical for us to just rebury them after all of what they have gone through. They've been desecrated. Our culture has been disrespected. It is our responsibility to bury our ancestors appropriately. That's the first one. The second point is, in response to somebody's question earlier in this session, it has been African tradition for over 5,000 years to prepare a body in similar ways that you have put up there. And this is no mystery. All of us know it. Perhaps we don't know that we know it. I invite us to consider the mummies in ancient Kemet. Our ancestors knew how to mummify bodies to make them last for untold number of years. Other people are still digging up mummified remains of our ancestors today and could tell details about them. Those mummies were prepared with oils and other things that you have mentioned. So we have a long, long history of preparing bodies, longer than anybody else in the world could talk about. And this is evidence-based. We're not speculating here. Thanks.
Thank you for that perspective, Brother Kimani.
Because in African tradition, according to the African have many types of tradition. And as the gentleman just said, yes, I know that, for instance, in Egypt, they prepared bodies and mummified them. And it was not only spiritual, it was also to preserve the length of time that they lived. So if you're saying that we need to prepare the bodies for extension, I wouldn't have any problem with that. I won't have any problem with some people doing what they want and some others. Because as I said, Africa is not only what we were taught was tradition, because I can't say what was. But I know Africa had also Islamic tradition, they had Hebrew tradition, they had because the people came out of Africa, out of Kush, and they had Christian tradition. So Africa is a scala. Africa is not just one thing, the scala of things that is including Africa. So that's why it just have a broad term African tradition. I don't think it speaks to the individual 69. And I believe they have to done decently and in order, which we do today too. We have a ceremony, mine will be Christian, the Islam will be Islamic, somewhat else will be another thing, and so there are ways of doing it. But seeing that we're dominantly a Christian community, we also have to take our values.
That is why this conversation matters, because the station voice matters in this as well. We know it's a balancing act. We want to honor, but at the same time, we would like to also deal with the discomfort within the community. So let me ask you a question. Would you, as a station, Christian values, be opposed to this ceremony taking place? Period. The preparing of the remains. Would you be opposed to that?
I understood that they went to Benin. They went to Benin and got to consult. And also that the ancestors said, I don't believe that. I don't think the ancestors can say what. I know there are traditions that we hold from the ancestors that speaks to us. The tradition can speak to us. And so if we went to Benin, which have a type of race that our ancestors embrace. There are other parts in Africa that others that have embraced. Did anyone go to those also? I am hearing only from the West.
Because based on the historical records, our people came from West Africa, the Congo, including Benin. There is research that was done on that.
Very good.
So that's why we went to Benin.
I understand that. But even now, modern day, in Benin, Congo, Ghana, Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, all those places, they have Christians. That doesn't hold to the African traditions. And I put African tradition in quotation mark, like the one that is quoted here. And they have Islams, and they have different persons, even in the West, where our people came from. And a lot of them that came out of there, I am not saying that were Islam, but they were in pork and all those things. Even when we went to America, some of them continue that tradition that they won't eat pork. So they had a different way of doing things. And they came through this port to get there also.
Yeah, but the question is, Mr. Hooker, the question is, would you be opposed as a station to this ceremony taking place, whether it's in a private setting for those who so choose, Would you be opposed to that? That is the question.
I did ask the question. I said, you have 69. I will do all 69 honor this tradition, or I will do so much honor that tradition, so many honor this tradition, so many honor the other tradition. Because what I'm hearing here, I'm doing an African tradition for all 69. An African tradition, I'm putting in the quotation marks.
You put the African tradition, Brother Kimani, and then we're gonna continue.
Yeah, I want to respond very strongly to what Mr. Hooker said. He said there is no African tradition, and he said that there are Islamic and Christian traditions. Those are disruptive, imposed traditions upon African tradition, and many of them have borrowed, practiced, stolen African ideas. So I want to emphasize there is a single African tradition with many variations. People who for some reason or the other do not wish to respect African tradition bring this nonsense about there being different traditions within Africa. It's like saying that stations speak a different language from the people in any other island here you can select because you have a different accent. It's as ridiculous as that. So let me emphasize that there's a single tradition in Africa, and Christianity and other traditions. You may choose your tradition. I don't have a problem with somebody believing something. You're entitled to your belief, and I will respect you, even though I think or may think that you're wrong. But belief and facts are two different things. And I'm talking now about the facts. I'm not talking about Christian beliefs. And although I wish to say very clearly that I have an engagement with the basics of Christianity, like the 10 Commandments, like the good person who's your neighbor, and so on. All of those come from Africa. And Christianity has never admitted that it has stolen those things from Africa. The last point, quickly, I would invite us to consider is this. How did African people here and elsewhere get Christianity? Who imposed it upon us? What were they doing to us when they imposed Christianity upon us? Do people who enslave you, rape you, and do the most unspeakable things to you mean you any good when they give you any good?
So we're going to go to Brother Kane, and then Brother Hooker, then we're going to move on. But this just proves how complex this is. You see, it's a balancing act, and that is why it's just not easy. It's not, we're dealing with a very complex reality now. Brother Kane, and then Brother Hooker, and then we're going to go to the next segment.
Yeah, thank you. I agree this is a complex issue. And we don't know that we don't know. Because we don't know what sort of tradition these 69 persons had. Whether they were Christians, Muslims, humanists, or something else. Right? But we have to do something. Big decision. We have to do something. And I think like what Manny says, there is an African tradition and all the other things. Tributaries of that one water, this river, and then you have tributaries that go to different places. So either you take a general river and wash them like the river, or you leave them how they are. We don't want to leave them out there. So therefore we have to take something general, because we don't know that we don't know. That's the issue. It's a complex issue.
It's a complex issue. And we're not going to figure it out today, because we've been busy with this for quite a while. We're not going to figure it out. I do have to take the time into consideration, because we have some items that I would like to go through before Papa Hooper comes on.
Okay, I'm listening to the professor saying that there's an African tradition. But when you talk about African tradition, oftentimes you go back to Egypt. And even in Egypt, they had differences. They had those that believed in one God, and there was a king that moved his kingdom and started his own kingdom about one God. And you had those kingdoms that talk about different gods. And so when you're talking about African, that's why I said, I did not say that there is no African tradition. I said put African tradition in quotation mark, because when one is saying African tradition, they mean the one they get from the Benin. And when another is talking about African tradition, I'm talking about the Christian tradition. And when someone else, they're talking about the Islamic tradition, and someone else might talk about Haile Selassie. So there's a scala of things that can fit on the African tradition. And yes, I agree that something needs to be done, but I don't believe that we should say all 69 have to be done in this way.
I'm happy you brought it up, because indeed, when we say African tradition, what are we talking about? When we were preparing this presentation, when we are talking about African tradition, we are talking about pre-colonial, pre-enslavement Africa. Some of these remains were first generation. So when we put it in that context, and their descendants, they were brought over with their own spiritualities, pre-colonial, pre-slavery Africans. So, yes. Yeah, but that's Islam. Look, we're going to be going into all directions, because Islam was imposed as well. But that is another discussion. We have to move on. We have to.
I claim equal rights. Mr. Hooker, you distorted African history. Because the king you talk about, most likely Akhenaten, is one variation on African tradition. It doesn't mean that it's a different tradition. It's a slight emphasis upon one aspect of that tradition. Secondly, nothing or everything did not begin in ancient Egypt, Kemet. You're repeating what disrespectful Europeans have said that we mean. We're discovering now, and we're uncovering, a whole lot of what we're calling the Mesolit. That's the period before ancient Egypt. And I happen to be one of the leading scholars in uncovering how our ancestors came out of a common homeland, which they called the land of the ancestors, the place where the spirits of the ancestors are buried, placenta land and holy land in their languages. So there is no doubt about this. And I want to repeat, there's a single African tradition with many variations. And it lasted from before we know anything much, before human beings invented writing in Kemet, in Africa, and the people from Congo who were captured by people who call themselves Christians and enslaved here, they were carriers of that tradition also. Any foreign tradition, Christianity, Islam, Hebrewism, there are two things you could say about them. One is that they stole from Africa, and second is that their impositions on Africa, they never went to Africa peacefully. They were all impositions. Nobody needs to be hugely literate in these areas to know that there was genocide and things like that by the Muslim forces in Africa. And the same thing with the Christians, or people who call themselves Muslim and who call themselves Christians. It doesn't mean that every Christian or Muslim was a bad person, but a lot of inhuman things have been done in the name of these religions, and your presentation doesn't seem to acknowledge that, Mr. Hooker.
Mr. Hooker, I need Mr. Hooker. Mr. Hooker. Okay, so when you respond, then someone else, okay, one more, and then we're going to move on, because I have to take the time into consideration. No, after we're going to move on.
You know, sometimes when you discuss it, and it's changing, like they get at the person thing that they're saying. But I listened to the presentation, which I think was a very good presentation this morning. And I really learned a lot also. And I captured that there was some evolutionary theory also in the presentation that was accepted as part of the development. And I'm saying, for me, out of the question also, and I'm saying even before the Christianized Europe, or Europe didn't start Christianity. Christianity came to Europe via a bridge. So what the Christianity that we got here mainly that was imposed to enslave us was Europeanized Christianity, not proper Christianity that we know. And I'm not going to that Europeanized Christianity and say that's what it is. There was Christianity in Africa way before European Christianity came back and distorted the whole thing. And there was also Haile Selassie ancestors that basically went to their ancestors that brought certain things to Africa that is there. So that's what I'm saying. The people, the 69 that came from Africa, I'm saying some might have been Christians, some were Islam, some were African, traditional African, as you put in quotation mark, and you cannot say they must do it this African way that you got from Benin.
Brother Kenneth, I have to be strict because I have to go through the presentation. If I don't, we won't figure it out today.
Let's move on.
So we have to move on. I have to be strict. In regards to gifts in the casket, this is based on African tradition as well. My question to stations, how comfortable would you be if whatever gifts you make, whether it's a drawing, whether it's a bracelet, how comfortable would you be to have these gifts placed in the caskets before the reburial? How comfortable would you be? How comfortable, Denise, how comfortable would you be? Ingrid, how comfortable would you be? Ingrid is looking like it is like, don't talk to me. So tell me about the gift aspect as a station. How comfortable would you be with that?
From my personal experience, I don't think a lot of us would have any issues with that. Because even present day, when a loved one dies or whatever, you replace their favorite watch or their favorite socks or you bury them in their favorite shirt. So I don't see an issue with us placing gifts that we think that they would have appreciated when they were very comfortable.
Because it's in where you say? What we bury them in?
I don't understand your question.
No, they are going to we build mini caskets and we have to put the remains in the mini caskets. So I'm asking, how comfortable would you be? Let's say you want to leave something in that casket, a bracelet or something. How comfortable would you be with having a bracelet placed in one or a few of the caskets as a station? Would you be comfortable with that? Yes. Okay. So that maybe is something we can agree on. We're not going to agree on everything, and I think that is fine. Movement from the Heritage House onto the truck. This is how we envision it. There are 69 of them. We need to take them from the Heritage House. We need to place them on a truck. The question is, how should we do that? Should we stand in a human chain? Should people be standing in a row and have the caskets pass from one person to the next, onto the truck? Or do you envision something else? How do you envision that? No. Listen, we are weaving stuff. Well, the thing is, in African, I think pre-enslavement Africa, I don't think they were trucks. They were installed. No, but my question is, I am just saying, how should they be removed from the house?
I'm thinking that back in the day, we didn't have the trucks. We didn't have the vehicles. So if we're going to honor them and try to memorialize what was back then, and we should also maybe think of a cart donkey and cart or a cart that where someone can pull and you can walk or take things pulling or something like that because no matter the day on the trucks.
Are we going to put 69?
Make sure the truck decorated.
She said make sure the truck is decorated. Listen, let me ask. Yes, the time. You see, now I have to hurry it off, so I have to continue along. How much minutes do I have? I passed the time.
All right, good evening, everybody. Happy Emancipation Day. Happy July Day. That too. So, I am going to tell you a story that relates to what I'm going to talk, partly relates to what I'm going to talk about. An original story, by the way. Old Miss Dina was a good woman. Wherever there was a need, she was there in pain. If somebody didn't have any clothes, old Miss Dina bring clothes for them. If a young lady didn't have enough food to feed her children, old Miss Dina would come early in the morning and put some flour by she doorstep and make sure that she get food for she children. And whenever there was a wake, old Miss Dina was the first person there to help to set up for the wake, and she always bringing something for the wake. But it was old Miss Dina time. She passed, and it was all wake. The whole station come out for old Miss Dina wake. Everybody. Old Mr. Spanner, he butchered a whole goat and he donated half of it. Yeah. Auntie Hooker, she baked the best Johnny cake. And you know in them times, Auntie Hooker used to bake the best Johnny cake. Van Putten the fisherman, he went out and he threw his fish pot and he bring fish. Everybody in station brings something to the wake. Everybody except Ezekiel. Ezekiel showed up at the wake, dressing his son the best. He set him in the place where they had the most light, and he started to eat. He packed up his plate with cold meat, Johnny cake, bush tea, and he eat. Then he went back for seconds and he eat again. A young fella said to him, Zeke, you bring anything to this day? Zeke spread out himself, he smiled and he said, I bring an empty belly and a big appetite. And so he packed up the plate again and he eat. When for the morning start to come, a cold breeze blow across the wake. People shiver a little bit. One woman say, hey, old Miss Dina's spirit traveling. Oh, you know she used to like the sea water. So it's sea breeze that coming. But Mr. Brown knew better. You see, Mr. Brown born with Carl. When you're born with Carl, you're born with a thing on your face. You just see things. You just hear things that other people can't see and hear. Mr. Brown noticed that old Miss Dina's coffin was giving a creak, and he heard a song coming from the coffin. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Nobody else could see this. Mr. Brown, he keep himself together. He make sure nobody else know what's going on. Scratch, scratch, scratch. And so, for the morning come, everybody went home. When Ezekiel reached home and he went to sleep, Ezekiel wake up to a song on the window. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Ezekiel come on, he look, he see nobody. So, Ezekiel come back to sleep. Ezekiel there sleep again. He hears some again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Ezekiel follow the sun come out. Then he hear footsteps, like somebody foot dragging, and he follow the sun. He is in about, when he turn it back to go back to sleep, he hear bing, 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 like pots and spoon and forks knocking. Ezekiel look around, he see nobody, so he went back to sleep again. The next night now, Ezekiel wake up again, but this time to a smell. Ezekiel smelling this lovely food. So Ezekiel follow the song, follow the smell, follow the smell. The smell take him to the kitchen area, and there was all kind of food just like they had in the week. It had goat meat, it had baked johnny cake, it had bush tea, all kind of food. Ezekiel sit down on the table and he start to eat. He started to eat, enjoying the food. He enjoyed the food. And so he enjoyed the food. And then all of a sudden, the goat meat started to taste coarse like sand. And the johnny cake started to come hard like rocks. And the bush tea started to taste bitter like aloes. But Ezekiel couldn't help himself. He continued to eat. He tried to stop eating, but he can't stop eating. He continued to eat and eat. And when you look around, you hear a voice saying, scratch, scratch, scratch. Scratch, scratch, scratch. And when Ezekiel looked around again, he heard a voice coming from the corner. And the voice saying to him, you eat from the living, you eat from the dead. Your bum 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 black up and your belly gon' swell. You don't give. You eat from the living, you eat from the dead. Your belly, your bum 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 black up and your belly gon' swell. And so Ezekiel frightened, he trembling. When Ezekiel look up, he see all Miss Dina in the corner, they in the same dress that they bury she in. Ezekiel head raised like when you see him jumping. All he hair and his skin stand up, and Ezekiel tried to get to run. When he tried to bring up his foot to run, he can't. Your right foot. He tried to bring up his left foot, he can't move. And so Ezekiel can't stop eating. Ezekiel continued to eat and eat and eat and eat until 4 in the morning come, everything disappeared. Everything except Ezekiel belly. Ezekiel belly, big, pack up with the food. For 9 days and 9 nights, Ezekiel can't go to the bathroom. Ezekiel, on the 10th day, Ezekiel went out and repaired old woman fence. He went out and he helped old Miss Thelma clear up she field. And the first person who died in station, guess who was the first person there to help? Ezekiel come and he started to help. He even bring up pot of old food soup and he help to set up, help. And so, are you watching me funny? Look at the lady, you're watching me funny. What am I telling you? The old people in station say, if you go to a wake and you ain't bring something, you ain't give nothing, Miss Dina jumping on hunt you. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Scratch, scratch, scratch. And so the story ends and the wire bell, and I write my mother with a fountain pen. I want to dedicate this presentation to the 69 ancestors and those brave July 12, 1848 leaders who got exiled to Teresol. Yeah? I also want to commend the people of Station, right? I'm incredibly proud of you that you decide to refer to these remains as the 69 ancestors. That is important because you are saying you are taking control of the narrative by not calling them slaves. So you're referring to them, you're giving them humanity by referring to them as your ancestors. I think that's commendable. All right. Imagine for a moment with me, you are an enslaved person in Statia in June 30th, 1863. You went to sleep that evening. You went to sleep not owning any land, not owning any tools, not owning any pots, not even owning the clothes that you have on your back. Then you woke up July 1st, 1863, and you are free. But you still don't own any land, you still don't own any pots, you still don't own anything, not even the clothes you have on your back. Now, at the same time, those who owned you, they got 200 guilders for every enslaved person that they owned. How did these people survive the first 40 years of after emancipation? How did they manage to survive? They were starting from zero. Approximately 1,200 stations were starting from zero. How did they survive? The evidence suggests, historical evidence, that emancipation didn't give them access to land or wealth or capital. But they came up with some survival strategies. They did. And they found ways to support their families by coming up with their own form of economics. Now, I am going to emphasize 3 of those methods today that we have taken for granted, that we have not given enough voice to. But firstly, let me just go down the list. They use migration, family kinship, wage labor, small-scale provision drum, informal household economics, and the following 3: jollification, partner hand, and wakes. I want to talk about those 3 as economic strategies that were employed by the ancestors for those years after 1863. In these last 3 economic strategies I want to focus on today, these 3 economic strategies, let me just get the glasses. These 3 economic strategies are often underestimated by us. We have not analyzed them enough, we have not written enough about them, especially in the station context. Well, I'm here to tell you that jollification, partner hand, and wakes were not, and I say not, insignificant economic strategies. They were fundamental to survival in the harsh economic situation that the ancestors found themselves in. And guess what? There was no input from the ruling class in these strategies. The transition from slavery, it brought freedom, but it did not bring economic equality. No compensation from government, no land, no access to education and credit, and a weak economy. As one of the post-emancipation studies concludes, formerly enslaved people found themselves in Statia, found themselves in a miserable socio-economic position. Well, jollification, partner hand, and wakes were critical economic strategies. Now I'm going to speak up to each one. Jollification. Now if you look up the word jollification in the dictionary, you will see terms, synonyms like festivity, merrymaking, and that's what jollification is. But isn't it interesting that the Statia ancestors merged merrymaking with hard work and turned it into an economic strategy to survive those difficult years after emancipation. In the context of post-emancipation Statia, jollification can be understood as a form of collective labor exchange and mutual aid that helped formerly enslaved people survive economically after 1863. Now what are the economic benefits of jollification? I'm listing 4 economic benefits of jollification. 1, labor pooling. Community members came together to build houses, clear land, plant crops, harvest provision, dig wells, or even complete other labor-intensive tasks. So that's 1 economic benefit. 2, another economic benefit of jollification, reciprocity rather than wages. Instead of monetary payment, participants receive food, drink, music, here's the economic part, the most important part, and the expectation that assistance will return when needed. Yeah? Number 3, reducing cost. Freed people who lack cash could still obtain labor for essential projects. Number 4, these are economic benefits of jollification. Community resilience. Jollification strengthens social networks that provided security in the times of poverty, drought, hurricanes, and Statia had some in the, at least 3 in the first 40 years after emancipation. Or unemployment. So jollification served as an informal, community-based economic system through which freed station exchanged labor, shared resources, and mobilized collective effort to compensate for lack of land, wages, and institutional support after emancipation. It reduced dependence on cash, facilitate home building and agriculture production, and help sustain communities in period of economic hardship. And that's jollification. Now I'm going to talk about partner. Remember, I'm looking at these 3 economic strategies that were essential after emancipation, directly after emancipation. But in Statia, the informal saving system known as partner hand or partner. Now, all who know what is partner hand, just put your hand up. So I don't have to even define the thing, right? After emancipation, formerly enslaved people faced major economic obstacles. They had no access to formal banking institutions or credit. Colonial financial system was designed primarily to serve merchants, plantation owners, and the elite. As a result, the freed people developed their own financial network based on trust, reciprocity, and community cooperation. And I'm going to skip the part about how partner hand work, because you know how partner hand work. But then I want to tell you about the economic benefits of partner hand. Number 1, access to capital without banks. Yes, those ancestors, they access capital by partner hand without banks. Partner hand provided one of the few ways freed people could obtain substantial sum of money. Participants used their payout to purchase land, yes, build homes, buy livestock. All of these are economic activities. Purchase fishing equipment. This is powerful stuff, man. Start small business and even pay off debts. Without such system, many people would have no practical access to capital investment. So you know. Number 2, partner hand reduced dependence on plantation owners. You will know as well that following emancipation, plantation owners attempted to maintain economic control by making workers dependent on credit or advances on wages. Partner hand offered an alternative source of funds, helping free people to achieve economic independence and reducing reliance on the masters. Number 3, managing economic emergencies. Partner could help to cover funeral expenses, medical costs, food shortages, home repairs, and any temporary loss. Here's another economic part of it. In this sense, it functions as an informal insurance mechanism. Yeah? That's powerful stuff. It also supported small enterprises. Many free people combined wage labor with marketing and vending and farming. They were able to purchase seeds and tools, buy goods for resale, invest in boats or fishing gear, and acquire material. And it served to strengthen the community. I'll leave the rest of that out because I want to go on, right? And then now wakes, another form of economic strategy that was employed by the ancestors to survive those first set of years after emancipation. Wakes. In post-emancipation Statia, wakes were primarily religious and social events, but they also function as an economic survival strategy for formerly enslaved people and their descendants. After emancipation in 1863, many stations had limited access to land, credit, employment, and so on. In this context, wakes became part of the broader system of mutual aid and community support. How did wake contribute to the economics? So what's the economic contribution? Number 1, resource sharing. Family and friends and neighbors brought food, drinks, and other supplies to the bereaved house, not Ezekiel. This reduced the financial burden of funerals and mourning, and for families who often had limited means. Number 2, mutual aid network. Participation in wake, this is important, created obligation of reciprocity. So people who contribute labor, food, or money to one's family wake could expect a similar system when they experience death in their own family. This was an informal insurance system. It was death insurance. That's what it was, right? That helped the communities to manage their. And number 3, labor support. Community members assisted with preparing the body, hosting visitors, digging graves, organizing funeral. Such collective labor lowered the costs that would otherwise have required cash. And 4, it strengthened social ties. It was a place where people meet, and up to today, when I go to a wake, people who I see for years, I see another wake, right? And then it served as a form of circulation of information. People found information on job opportunities, migration possibilities, land availability, and so on and so on. So, these three economic strategies were employed by the ancestors for those 40 or more years, and to some extent some of them continue today, as a means of survival. But we have taken these for granted. We have not done enough work, and we have not even attempt to quantify the economic impact that these had on helping the ancestors to survive. And let me conclude with this. As part of Statia, people taking control of their own narrative. Anytime you are tempted to say that people of African descent can't work together, I want you to think of the first 40 years after emancipation. And I want you to juxtapose that self-defeating thought, that self-fulfilling prophecy against jollification, partner hands, and wakes. Statia brothers and sisters, thank you.
Good afternoon. I don't know how I'm going to follow that, but
do your thing, brother.
I'll do my best. But I was born in Suriname, and in Suriname, Emancipation Day is called Kikikodi. The breaking of the chains. I don't do Kikikoki, I don't do Emancipation Day. I should speak even louder. I don't do Emancipation Day. I don't believe that it's a celebration that I should be part of. And I'll tell you why. One second, please. I'll tell you why. I cannot celebrate the day that my ancestors were given back their freedom, because it should never have been taken away from them. How can you celebrate? Celebrating that freedom is like when somebody steals your bike, and then 10 years later he comes back and gives you your bike back, and then every year you celebrate the day that he gave you back your bike. There's many other days. The theme of today is celebration is freedom gained, freedom taken, freedom won, freedom won, not granted. So there's many other days that I believe that we should be celebrating, because in effect we're celebrating the fact that all of a sudden these races realize that people should not have their property. And so we're celebrating their enlightenment. But I'm glad that I came. I'm glad that I came to Statia on the invitation of Kenneth, because I lived in St. Martin for very, very long, and then I moved to the Netherlands. And coming back, I realized what I'm missing here: humanity, kinship. There was a lady who was sitting here. She just left. She was one of the 3 ladies today who stopped me dead in my tracks. Who you is? Who you for? The lady who was sitting there, she reminded me of my mother. She looked really like my mother. So I found a picture of my mom. I showed her, and she said, "Thank you for the compliment." And she just left. So I can't tell this story to her face. But it's family that does that. Family that makes you feel like family. Today we're commemorating broken chains, and let's not break that chain of family. I wanted to share that thought before I went to my presentation. So, my name is Marvin Oxlam Bapure. I am a writer, I'm a journalist, I'm publisher of Afro Magazine, and I'm the founder of Rose Institute, which is well on its way to become the first African university campus in the Netherlands. I want to share a video with you. The first time I watched this video, I found myself cheering for this little block, hoping that it would eventually find a spot. But then I realized that the block was getting smaller and smaller, and they kept heaping up other obstacles. And the little block kept getting smaller to fit inside whatever gap would be left. We never know if it eventually finds a spot. And I realized, isn't that the story of black people? Constantly being blocked from where we want to go, always encountering obstacles placed there by the system. So we continuously adapt. We make ourselves smaller than we actually are. And still they take. They've taken away our past, our freedom, our identity, our religions, our culture, our names. And when we develop new things, they're quick to jump on that too. We shrink and we make ourselves smaller. We make ourselves fit in whatever they leave us. We happily do. In Suriname, we have a saying for this: sakafasi. We're taught to be humble, to give away air, even the air that we breathe. And some of us think that's how it's supposed to be. So we never reach our true potential. But how can we if we always have to fit in the scraps? Growth within confines that are controlled by others is not growth. On Monday, when we were at the radio station, I used the analogy of a goldfish. If you keep a goldfish, my brother, if you keep a goldfish in a bowl, he doesn't grow bigger than the bowl. And the same thing with a shark. Keep him in an aquarium and he will never reach his full potential. This is a goldfish that they found in a lake in the US. This is not AI, it's a true picture. It's called stunted growth. There's pictures of sharks that were raised, pictures of goldfish that were released in rivers in the US, and they became massive monsters, massive, beautiful monsters. If we only know that we can be goldfish in rivers instead of sharks in aquariums, if we only knew who we truly are. Over the past 100 years or even longer, every community in the Western world has built its own educational institutes. This thing is moving slow today, so whereas children are educated from within their own culture and identity. The Indians have their own schools, the Muslims have their own schools, Jews have their own schools, white people have their own schools. All schools are in essence white. Black people are the only ones who do not have their own educational institutes. We send our children to white schools where they are taught to be white people in a world that will consistently tell them that they are not white. Our children are educated to fail, to fit in a system that will constantly hit new obstacles in front of them. And when they succeed in that system, isn't it because they're good at being white people? The schools where we send our children to teach us to hate ourselves. I will illustrate. Last year, I was in Suriname, and while giving a presentation about Afro-centered education, an Indian man got up and told a story about an Indian school in the country. Many of the children in that school are of African descent, and this man said that these children of African descent learn Hindu prayers and so on. He said they get properly educated. And many of the black boys, he said, end up in relationships with Indian children. He said it's usually the black boys with fine features. So I asked him, what's fine features? And he said, and I kid you not, my features. And he did like this around his face, my features. So I asked him if he thought that I was ugly. The cringeworthy thing about this is that nobody in the crowd was shocked by what he said. I know black people who agree with him that black people should be better off not focusing too much on their African heritage. And you know them too. The point I'm making is that everyone is doing well because everyone is making sure that their children know who they are. And they are surgical about it. They don't tell stories about themselves in which they are always subservient. We are hardly ever the hero in our own stories. We're the only ones who believe that for us to do well, we have to be like the others. We happily carry their names, speak their languages, go to their schools, and excel at being them. But what if we would be surgical about who we truly are? We have to change the narrative in the stories we tell, in the books we write, and the education that we provide. For the past 10 years, I've been doing exactly this. I started Afro Magazine in the Netherlands in 2015 as a platform dedicated to black stories. My books, you'll see them just now, present a new narrative, and for the past 4 years I've been working on creating the institute that will teach us who we are. Rose Institute is doing research, we have African studies courses, and our goal is to eventually have a full-fledged campus in Europe where you can come and study any subject you like from an Afro-centric perspective. Our next cohort, Ms. Valentina, you asked, our next cohort starts in September. That's going to be a postgraduate course on African development. We work with an African university partners who teach from African indigenous perspectives, to teach our people who they truly are. So, back to the story that I was telling earlier. On July 1st, chains that held our people in bondage were indeed broken, but the links still remain. Links that tie us to Eurocentrism, to systems that were not built for us, so they don't work for us. We still have chains to break. And to fix that, we need to start reconnecting the links that have been broken long before that. The links to our true identity, to our ancestry, to our history, to our future. Links were broken when we were stolen from Africa. So while we commemorate the breaking of some chains, let's also work on fixing others. I thank you.
What we were trying to do when we encounter all of these 1,200 names, who was so-called given their freedom, and that's why we are saying with this new narrative, we were always free. We were put in subjugation, enslavement, and our ancestors fought against that to have us here today, as we still cherish some relative form of freedom. So these names, along with the religion, has nothing to do primarily with our ancestors, because they were given by the enslavers. And they were all actually issued on the 1st of July, 1863. Again, coming back to the point where the enslavers say, you know, now it's time for you to have no value where you are free. And I think we should resent that notion that we were given freedom. We were born free. Our ancestors were born free. And so we fought courageously, without fear, to preserve us being into being as who we are today. So these names I present, and those who want to look at them for a while, you can see if they really have any connection to those names today. And these are just merely 1,200 among many more. Because when we did the project, Remember Station Tracing Our Origin, we encountered so many more names on a documentary they call the Manomissions. The Manomissions was a sort of a receipt which are showing from the enslaver, you know, you either had the, how must I say, the possibility to bought your way out of slavery, or you were again being given freedom in whatsoever manner. And those documents are called in the slavery registry, the Manomissions. So we publicized, I think, about almost 200 of those documents during that research done at the time. So there's much more research need to be done. What is so impossible here, and I don't know if Brother Kimani have a take on that, is when we did all of this research and bundle and put these names into some form of a data, the question arose, how could we trace back and see if we can encounter any of our ancestors' original names? But I think that would be something impossible.
Most times, no. And those of us who think that we're Christians, this is something to consider. Because these names, we know them as Christian names. That's a disguise. And it tells you something about what Christianity, how it intended to destroy us. Those names are all European names. They're no Christian names. They're European names. In the same way that there are no Muslim names. They're Arab names. And we need to be very clear about that. If we had African names, the original names of these people, we would have been able to tell a whole lot about them. With not only where they came from, but other specific things about them. Every African name has a meaning, and you could tell stories from names. So this raises the question of how our people became dispossessed of our identity. And in this instance, names as aspect of our identity. We will speak at length on names, because in African tradition, a name has always been a cultural seed. It always tells your identity.
Brother Taro and everybody else, we would like to ask for your attention. And those who sit in far on the side, I would like to invite some of you all to come over here closer to join and hear some of the discussion, please. This day was not only about eating, it was also about education. So, you're all welcome to get someone more closer to us. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Okay. We will start. I would like to start with the members of the panel. Brother Atwell, Dr. Kane, so much has been said today. So many things. And we are moving now to the end of the day, and we would like to reflect back onto the day since this morning in relation to so many things. Could you all together in an integral manner give your reflection onto how the day went, the issues which we were speaking about this morning, the places we went, the sacred grounds we visit, and what you all taken and all of that. And also, the public are invited to join and ask questions as such.
Well, two of the main points is how early we have to get up to do the drive by to the various sites. That was okay. And also having Johnny Cake for breakfast. Very important. Like different, some people had fish, some had tuna, some had saltfish. Something to get. But anyway, the other point is the setting that we had in front of the council home. What was that house that we sat? On the library, in front of the library. To tell you the truth, I expected to see more stations there to illustrate, and more persons who were interested. I don't know why there were not a lot of people, but again, it's not going about the quantity of persons, but the quality of what we did. And I think a pretty good job was done, right? And it's the first time. I think the second time will be better. But this is just trying to get the whole kicking ball off. I think by the time we have the second match next year, it'll be much better. And people would have heard about today and think, well, it's okay, it's worthwhile. I'm going to be there because I could have my say, asking questions, but I could also learn something from what's been said, which I've heard before. One thing is, when I spoke about Marcus Garvey, one lady asked me, "You sure he died in London?" I thought they murdered him in Jamaica. I said, no, he died in London. Nobody murdered him, and he wasn't murdered in Jamaica. So that's where people get misinformation, and that was a moment of correction. And there were other things. But generally, I think the speeches were good. I was always surprised that the mayor and the councillors were so positively progressive in their speeches. I was expecting something else, but again, perhaps that's not to go with expectations and just go and sit down and listen. If you go with expectations, you're putting the person already in a box. Just go and listen and see what the person has to say, and then you can speak after. So generally, it was okay. But
well, I'm extremely pleased to be part of this process. We've begun with, I guess, less people than we're comfortable with. But I want to say this. Once you begin correctly, the end will not trouble you. And many of us who are involved in this and similar movement would talk about, when we began to talk about reparations, there were people who were saying, shall I say, not very complimentary things. Now everywhere you look is reparations, reparations, reparations. And this is what happens to an idea whose time has come. We must not fool ourselves. There are people on station and in other places who are opposed to some of what we do or all of what we do. We should not disrespect people because they have different ideas or understanding from us. But we should disagree with them if we think they're wrong. And that's extremely important to be able to do. And as a teacher, I find it important to point out to any person or group significant things that occur in our midst. And that's why I want to mention Baba Umkum's presentation today. Almost everything you said happens on other islands and in other parts of the African experience. Now, this for me is a validation of what I was saying when I was sitting there. And I said that African people have a single culture, but there are many variations in the culture. Our brother is from Suriname. He knows about cash money. And you were talking about cash money under a different name, right? The partner. In Guyana, we call it the box or box hat. In Trinidad and in Jamaica and Susu. Susu is the name from Africa. Yes, I'm saying that, okay? And it doesn't matter which part of Africa you go, there are variations of this. And it's important for us to stop representing ourselves as though we have no relationship with our brothers and sisters in different parts of the African world. I am not saying that we may not be unique, and we mustn't speak about ourselves as who we are, including whatsoever is unique about us in station. But it's important for us to understand that we come from the same fountain, and that any presentation which does not recognize and acknowledge that is incomplete to the extent in which that is so. I could go on and on and on and mention a whole lot But I wish to commend you, Papa, in your presentation. The story you told is a story of the importance of the collective approach, which is part of African culture from the earliest times. And your story is saying you have to contribute to your community, or else something bad is going to happen to you. That's how African people reinforced our learning, our values. And again, this goes back for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. So, without any further ado, let me say that this was an opportunity for me to learn and hopefully to teach something. I value it. I look forward to being here again, and I wish this project every success, which I know it's going to enjoy, because there are people who are different stations who are contributing to this common process. And you can't be better than that. You can only get better.
But, Brother Kimani, you're not going to get away that easy. I would like to address you with the following question. You were here to learn. Now, in that learning process, could you give us some indication as to the days you experienced the learning process? What has you specifically learned in that short period of time, or realized in that short period of time? Curious to know.
One is the very, very specifics of station. African people throughout the world are busy reclaiming our heritage. In station, the most significant aspect of that reclamation is the burial grounds. I call them ancestral parks, and I hope you follow me in this, because those are parks, or supposed to be parks, in which we honor and glorify our ancestors by preserving their remains, keeping the surroundings clean, putting up signs and doing whatever we can do, so that people who walk through there would only feel at peace. They would be educated also. This must be a place where we could take visitors and say that, you know, so-and-so, this is so-and-so's resting place. So-and-so is significant to station because so-and-so did this thing of significance. So-and-so fought for this progress or something like that. That's how we memorialize our ancestors. But in remembering our ancestors and their specific contributions, we are also locating ourselves in time and place and attaching ourselves to our ancestors' struggle and therefore to what we ought to be doing today. And all these are things that I learned, relearned, or reinforced. You know, I also learned that there are divisions or disagreements within the movement. Genuine ones. I may not agree with somebody whatsoever, but I think it's important that as a movement, we don't bury our heads in the sand and try to forget that there is disagreement. A movement is strong when it recognizes whatsoever there is about it. So I hope that, you know, debates will continue. And most importantly, a lady who was sitting there said something that I think is valuable. She said that she didn't understand what libation is. And it's only when it was explained to her, she knew what it is, and she agrees with it. And I think that that's something extremely important, extremely valuable. And it points a finger at one of the things the Alliance should be doing. We know this. We should be educating each other and educating their people. We should be preparing members of the Alliance to go out into our communities and educate them. You know, people will only see the world through what they know. And usually, we don't recognize that what we know is what we have been taught by other people. And who are these other people who teach us? Usually, they're Eurocentric people whose ideas have been inherited from hundreds of years ago when our people were seen as cattle to be trained, to be miseducated, when to learn to read and write was a crime on the plantations. Imagine that. The people who invented literacy were punished for reading and writing. So we need to educate each other. Somebody in the crowd, I understand, said that libation is opium. Now, that person may believe that, but it's something critical for us. There are two things we need to do. Not only explain what libation is, and we have that explanation, but here's something important. Every act of African culture was not only banned by our oppressors, they said bad things about it. They said there is nothing good about African culture. And today, we find somebody repeating that dangerous nonsense about libation, saying it's opium. Here's something. I will bet you that the individual who said that will not bat an eyelid if they go to a Catholic church and they see the priest doing incense, pouring holy water, performing communion. But I bet you that if any of us here put on some white clothes and we go on the street corner and we do the same things, those very people will say that's bad, we're doing opium. But to do it in a church by people who oppress us in a tradition that oppresses us is okay. That's how lopsided, upside down, contradictory the minds of many of us have remained. And something like that signals to us that we have more work to do to educate our people. We must first educate ourselves, then educate others. So all of these, in my estimation, are important moments of my stay here. So that's part of my reflection, only one.
Thank you, Professor Emmanuel. Now, this day was, I would like to ask the public here a few questions, because we have been on Statia organizing so-called Emancipation Day for years. This year, we took a whole completely different approach. Could anyone here actually elaborate a bit on what they perceive to be different in comparison to previous years? And at the same time, what had you learned along the day during the procedure? Who would like to elaborate?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eustatius Afrikan, and I'm part of the Statia Festival. The story was told, an initiative from Tara Morgan, and I decided to support. I was kind of intrigued as to why the celebrations today took on this format. Because I've been speaking to a few persons patronizing, the setting of the environment here, and they keep saying that it's noisy, that they can't hear anything, and why they choose to, do the things that they're doing today here in this setting. And from experience, we know that the young people are not really interested in stuff like this. At least from my experience, and that's why we keep saying it is important for our story to become a part of the curriculum. Because this morning too, look at the persons who attended, look at who were present. There were no young people, and there were speeches, there were information shared, and there were no young people there to hear the story. So I was telling the person, I say, well, if this was organized in a closed setting, in the community center, in the Elma, in the den, or even at the library, no not show, especially young people, they will not come out. So by doing it here, at least persons who are walking around, patronizing the booths, sitting around, relaxing and just enjoying the day, they will still be able to pick up something. They will still be able to hear what is going on, hear the stories, hear the panel discussions, hear questions, and they might not listen to the entire thing, but they will still ask questions. Okay, I just heard that. What's going on? What's that about? So we have to find ways and means to involve the community without mandating them to come to a specific location. And I think this was actually genius.
Thank you. Give a round of applause. And it was well analyzed why we did this, because as you stated, the conventional approach and format is so conservative that, you know, it secludes so many people. So what I did along with others who are around the table, we decided, you know, our people, African people like food. They like music. Wherever food and music is, young, old, elderly, you will find our people. And so, a lot of young people have been circulating here today. What did they pick up, receive? That's something still an unknown, but I'm saying for sure they heard things and they are taking away something from this setting. So that is particularly why, from a conscious approach, we decided to do this like this today. So thank you for that observation.
Good afternoon. I wasn't able to attend a lot of meetings. I was traveling and I got back. This afternoon, I took a rest this morning before I came here. But when I got back to the islands in 2011, Emancipation Day was not even a holiday. It was not a public holiday. We would be trying to celebrate Emancipation Day, and people from the national government that work for RCN would be working on Emancipation Day. It was in 2015, 2016 that Emancipation Day became an official holiday, and in that period, they had to give up the day after Carnival to be able to get Emancipation Day as a holiday. Now, we reach here, right? And my friend here said it needs to be in the school. We need to document our stories. This is a part of the journey. I could say, when I came back here in 2011 to now, this is a major step. And we will get it in the schools. We will get it in the schools. Someone said to me the other day, they're saying our story is a lie. I said it doesn't matter. Even if it's a lie, it's a better story than Columbus' story. It's a better story than Britain. It's a better story than all the rest. So document your stories so we can take them where they have to go. And I hope that this panel will continue to come and that we can organize different settings, different areas, and also in the schools, because it is more than necessary and the time is far gone. It should have happened a long time ago. So I applaud the initiatives, and I definitely hope that it will continue, and you all will continue, and we will be able to bring the young people on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Give him a round of applause. I would like to take what we just illustrated to another level, because from an African-centered point of view, when we speak about schools, we are speaking about buildings, institutions. But most of the schooling within the African community, and you were born here, I was born here, most of my knowledge, what I know about our history, were not from the school, or from the elderly under the tree that stories. So there are many ways we have, and I'll give you an example. You know, when I came here to set up the psychiatric and addiction treatment, I had youngsters who come to the center and I gave them explanation. And they will say, well, according to me, my teacher is on substance, based on the information they gather. So I would say it's not for me to have a discussion with you as the judge teacher, but seeing the knowledge that you are taking away, you are the one who can use that and do something about that in school. So what I'm just trying to say, this setting of itself is an educational moment. Like the lady said, so much young people were here today. What they took away, I don't know, but I'm sure they took away something. So that's why I make it my point of duty to sit on the corner, sit on the tree with the young people and have a discussion. And so I think that's one way of approaching and talking about our history, our identity, what they think about their identity, what is their identity, what is their association and the correlation with their ancestors, and how they came into being. So I love what you said, but I think as well it's not only based on the conventional setting, it is the African-centered way of an approach as well. Anyone? Yes? And you can address questions to the panel over there as well.
Yes, also one additional thing I'd like to point out is that in the past, we used to have a ceremony the day before, a celebration in the morning, and then in the evening, the official Emancipation Day program. But today, somewhere in between the discussion, I kind of picked up on something, because I think it was you that mentioned that first we have to acknowledge and commemorate, and then we celebrate. Because I was actually wondering why there's no singing and music all through the day. But then I realized that we have to stand still by what actually happened. And then this evening is where all the music, the dancing, and the celebration will take place. And then the program actually made sense, to put it like that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Sams is a youngster, and we are talking about the younger people. I'm trying to act with younger people. I carried you today on a scene, and you were shocked. And you've been on that beach, but never knew I had a clue what that beach signifies or represents. Could you share some of your experience in that half an hour more or less with us, please?
Yeah, thanks so much, Mr. Kenneth, for introducing me to that site down there at the beach. African plantation. The burial ground. Because it's something repetitive in the sense that coming from abroad, I keep seeing the omittance, softening of this history of the African descendants. And coming to the island, I understand that some people that have lived here for years don't know about the details of the setting. So, like, the team is the
stand up, you have to move away.
Where is it? Like the theme is, the story must be told. That is something I find so important, that the story is being shared to as many people as possible to come to an understanding of this past.
Thank you. For everyone's information, even to the Quebec African Burial Ground Plantation, it has been looted tremendously between 2012 and 14. Up until today, the human remains which were removed from there are not accountable for until this day. So those are some of the crimes we are looking at, which continue to persist on this island constantly. Now, Sister Siamara, we have been working hard together you are pushing together with community and others. And I noticed the discussions we had today were tremendously complex. But why? And some of the time, the issues are so complex because of the ignorance at the same time. And I think it's Brother Kimani and I think Mr. Woodley and the lady said, especially Mrs. Jack, she was present this morning, and after the explanation about libation, and even the Bible, which you read almost every day probably, wouldn't know that libation is mentioned in that Bible 63 times in different ways. So, going forward, and today, with this new format, what would you have to say that you can take away from this new format and approach which we conducted and decided to have this new narrative approach? What do you think?
I can say a whole lot. But let me go back to my profession as a psychologist. When I have clients in my room, what I've discovered is that there are 3 types of clients, 3 types of families. There are clients who are actually clients. They are open to receiving the information. They're curious, they listen, you know, there is an interaction, there's this openness. Then there are clients who are on the fence. Not sure if they want to be here, there are things that are keeping them back, so those are clients that are in between. And then there are those who are actually not clients. They were sent. So no matter what you say or what you do, they will stick to their point of view. So what I want to say is there are 3 types of people, there were 3 types of people here today. And even in the community, there are persons in the community who are genuinely curious. Those are persons, you know, we have to continue to provide the information to because they are open. There are those who are on the fence. Even to those, you know, you can still have a conversation and see, hey, are you able to solve this dilemma, yes or no? But I know from experience that there are people, no matter what you say or no matter what you do, they are going to stick to their point of view. So we have to be able to discern the different types of people that we are dealing with. And I think what we have to be mindful of is not to end up in endless conversation, endless debate, because at a given moment you will realize that people are not listening to each other anymore. And these are to me, this is a takeaway. Know who you have in the room. Know if there are people who are open. You have conversations with those persons. There are people who are simply not open, so it does not matter. And I see that in my office space, and there are strategies to deal with that, but I'm not going to deal with that today. And there are those who are in between. So we need to read the audience, and we need to read each other, and we need to know when it makes sense to continue with certain efforts in certain spaces and certain groups, and when we should be silent. I feel that there's a time and a place for everything. So in moving forward, we need to continue with what we are doing. But Brother Kenneth, I do have to acknowledge the fact that we are standing on the shoulders of others. Brother Burkle, he's asleep there right now, taking a nap. Paul Spanner, those were people who in the past would go into the schools and teach this. So what we're doing is not new. I think it is important that we acknowledge the work that others have done, and as we move forward, we find new ways to engage our community and to engage also the young people. So I do want to acknowledge the work that others have done and the work that we are now doing, and when we are no more, others are going to take up the mantle and they are going to continue. So let's please acknowledge the fact that we are standing on the shoulders of others who have done this work.
Thank you for that. And I think you are referring to our ancestors in this regard. Where this started, we are going forward with. You wanted to ask a question?
I will say why our ancestors, right, have to go through so much trouble is because the white man did not care about the black man, because he feel like the black man, that he over the black man so he can do exactly what he wants. But I will say this, whether you're black or white, shouldn't have done what you've done, because that mean to say you destroy the black people mentality.
Thank you. Thank you. Slightly forgot your name. Yvonne. Forgive me for forgetting. I don't forget faces, but names until I get a cut. Now, we were speaking a bit about environment today. Could you recall that discussion? Basically speaking, from an ancestral point of view, African point of view, I knew when I was growing up, if I break that branch right there, I will be reprimanded by my parents. So when it comes to nature, the African way, nature is so important. And I had this discussion with you in the direction of the position you are having in government in relation to environment, etc. The question I would like to put to you, if you look at the structure you are in, and the methodologies and the approach, also taking into consideration the discussion you heard today, and coming from Europe, what would be your taking of this day and conclusion in relation to some of the topics? Also environment, for that matter. Could you elaborate a bit and share your thoughts with us?
I will try. I don't get to stand here.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I have only arrived about 7 weeks ago, and indeed I have joined the team that is responsible for the Nature and Environment Policy Plan. I am new, so I'm taking it all in. I'm also discovering the islands and the history and the cultural heritage that you've got here, but also the unique and exquisite nature and environment. And of course, the balancing act is trying to make it all fit together, because we are living here. We also need to live and be able to eat. This is why Made in Eustatius is also such a good initiative, and we had the growers gathering last week to stimulate people on the island also growing their own fruit and vegetables. I am a strong believer in sort of going back to nature, in the sense that, we actually need to learn from our ancestors, because as we were saying earlier today, they were much more in sync with nature. They did what apparently we have lost, the capability that we have lost is living alongside each other. I'm not saying, I've visited some African countries. I've also visited Australia 7 times. I have a very deep interest in African culture and history, and also indigenous culture. Also the Aborigines in Australia, they've done the same thing. They can survive in nature. They can find water where we, sort of Western European people, cannot. And I feel that we need to try and reconnect to nature, but that's also part of education. We need to teach the kids how important it is. Nature keeps us alive, but that also means that we need to look after it. So it's not going to be easy, but I'm very motivated to do my best, and hopefully I can contribute in a small manner. Thank you.
question, if you don't mind, because environment is a broad understanding. You spoke about agriculture, for instance, each indicator about environment. But there's another contrast when it comes to cooperation and, for instance, project development on this island in relation to our environment, which is not unique for St. Eustatius only. Even the Curacao and all of these islands are right now being disrupted, or rather erupted the environment because of what we call development. How would you see the combination, or how would you balance in your capacity and function to approach another way in relation not only about teaching children about agriculture or anything like that, but the most disruptive element we are noticing right now are the project developers who are really destroying huge amount of our environment on the island. How would you think that you will contribute to bring a halt, to find another combination of formula in order to develop, but also to preserve?
You place a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. My job will just be to advocate for nature and to give nature and environment a voice, to make it more visible in the community. We also have some colleagues who are involved in raising awareness, so that's going to be our job. We are also lucky to be embedded in the project management team, and they oversee bigger projects and developments. And because we are sharing the same office, we can also sort of point out how important it is that, we need to preserve our environment. So just by being present, they are hopefully in the future reminded that honestly, I need to think about nature, environment. And there's so many new technologies to become more energy neutral, for example, other methods for building, for construction, reusing waste as well, also construction waste. So I think we also need to research those and see what we can implement in that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll answer a question from your point of view, but is also directed to a phenomenon, because you have Mr. Woodley here sitting, for instance, and when we look at environment and teaching our children, I think we have a lot of knowledge on the island to do that as well. And what we are really seeing is, from a Eurocentric point of view, there's a lot of imports on our islands who are supposed to know and have all of the answers, or the technology, or the knowledge to do that. And I can remember when Mr. Woodley and others was in government at the time, and looking for more sort of how must I say, less being dependent on those same structures and approach. Our islands were penalized for that. Do you think, Mr. Woodley, that we always need these type of imported professional institutions?
I think it comes down to first seeing yourself, because if you know who you are, right, you know where you want to go. But if you look at the direction that our government has taken, we don't know ourselves. So we are always going with the wind because we don't understand who we are. We don't care to understand who we are. So it is the minute you say something. I lived in the Netherlands for 9-10 years. And I learned a lot in the Netherlands. I also learned a lot about myself in the Netherlands. So when I speak because I have experienced it, and I have no issues with the color of a person's skin, but I know me. I know where I come from, and I know where I want to go. And if I always have to change my tone to be able to fit in a room or in a conversation, then I'd rather not be there. So it will always be this way until we understand exactly who we are and where we want to go. So I knew, or we knew, some of us then, when we started, that it was confrontational to be able to say, hey, this is wrong. You have legal or so-called laws that you have to live by, abide by, but they are in contradiction to international laws. So which one do you uphold? If you're telling me that international law and human rights, right, is global, it's international, human rights is not different or not supposed to be different anywhere else. But when we come here, there are things that are not laws, they are conditions. You have things that tell you, when you reach here, our minister will decide. Unser minister soll beschließen. Is that a law? I'm not a law student. But for me, that's a sort of, suppose the minister loves me, and he could be biased. Suppose he don't like me. So how can you call this a law and there's no spirit to it? There is no, so again, having these conversations, I could remember some of the persons in the room back then said to me, hey, you can't go against the law. I said, okay. And now this will be confrontational. I said, back when Hitler and all of them were doing their thing, it was a law. It's confrontational, but it was a law. Somebody had to stop it. Right? So as long as you don't understand the system that you're in, we can talk and we have to be able to educate and keep moving. And what I'm saying and what I said earlier, this is very important because I would have preferred if I had these panels and people coming here when I was younger. But I say in 2016, even when you try to have panels, like Jamal was called crazy man, Mabumbo and all of them, they were called racist and what have you. But we're here today where we have a panel of professionals, people that understand, and we can have a discussion. And I'm happy that you're here because you can also have the discussion. But we do it in respect. And unless our leaders respect themselves, we can't expect nobody up there to understand us or hear us. Thank you.
Thank you too. It's good you mentioned the terminology law, because that's exactly the problem I have with the apology speech from the previous Prime Minister Mark Rutte. He said during the apology speech, at the time it was legal. What he really was saying, nothing or no harm was done. And if you look at the atrocities, how dare you conclude that by legality that is just what justified. Now, Brother Papa Umpu, I heard you mention earlier, and I heard Martin Luther King said it, the proclamation was given to our people in the United States, and the immigrants who were coming from Europe got hundreds of acres of land as an economical start to go on. And they said to our people, you know, strap up your boots and figure it out. And he said it was a cruel gesture to say to a bootless man or woman to strap up your boots and figure it out when you even didn't have boots. I heard you speak about today the backs of our people who didn't have clothing, or even the clothes, if they had it, were not belonging to them. Now my question to you, Since those days, has much changed? Are we having ownership to our economical situation? We found ways to survive, hand by hand, exchange of this and that. That's the strength of we African people. But when you look at so-called Emancipation Day, which I prefer to call African Day, that's my personal opinion, would you say that we really, are we so free?
You said nothing has changed but the disingenuous, right? However, there's a lot of work to be done. We have had physical emancipation, but the final frontier is mental emancipation. And I think there's a lot of work to be done in that area. Yeah. When the mind is free, then the person behave differently. Yeah? So I think there's a lot of work to be done. But I want to say to all the organizers, don't be discouraged. I know I could remember in the late 80s and early 90s in St. Martin, when we were organizing things like this, when things were, so few people used to be there. And people used to call the organizers' names too. And say, well, these people going with all the black talk and all this, and you know. But over time, a lot of people start to understand the importance of these events and sharing knowledge and so on. So even when the concept of Black history came to St. Martin, there was so much pushback. And right now, every February, several schools, there are celebrations, not coming from people outside, but from within the schools. You see? So it's a don't be discouraged, guys. It's a work in progress, and bit by bit, keep going, and you're going to get there.
What are they really celebrating in essence?
Well, I am one who believes that this day is the day emancipation they should be remembered. I understand the point of view of those who say differently, but we need to, because we are human beings, yeah, we need to set aside moments when we put emphasis on things. So yes, for us emancipation is all year round, but we set aside this day as the day when we really put emphasis on it. And it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. That to capture the minds of our people is a work in progress. So it'll take time. We gotta keep going. Keep chipping away, chipping away, and chipping away.
Yes, Peter just said, it's over 400 years. We've been, talking, thinking, and you put the emphasis on Emancipation Day. Would you say that when we look at Emancipation Day, that there are very much more emphasis on the enslaver and the colonizer and their legacy, which continue to persist? Or is there an awakening in the relationship or in relation to a new form of education when it comes to ourselves.
And this is what this function, moments like these, is to change that narrative. I'll give you an example. Growing up in St. Martin, right? Emancipation Day in Anguilla is the 1st of August, right? So growing up in St. Martin, you would hear St. Martin people go over to Anguilla for August Monday. It's the same thing. August Monday. All throughout the English-speaking Caribbean, those that were colonized by British, they were calling it August Monday. Now August has 4, sometimes 5 Mondays, right? Why was it called August Monday? That seems so deliberate to hide what it really was. August, I didn't even know until I got to be an older teenager that August Monday is this celebration of Emancipation Day in those places. You see what I'm saying? And now you're starting to hear the narrative change in those places. So you're now starting to hear people saying in St. Kitts and Trinidad and so on, they're saying now, some of them are saying now Emancipation Day. But as a little boy growing up in 70s, 80s, we were running over to Anguilla, going over for August Monday, and we had no clue that what they were celebrating is emancipation. The holiday came about because of Emancipation Day. You see what I'm saying? So it's a process, but I'm getting there.
Could I make a contribution here? It's just to confirm what Papa is saying. I was born in Guyana, and as a youngster, I was exiled to a certain village in the country because of, shall we say, political differences with the ruling regime. One of the things that I spent a lot of time doing as a teenager was community organization. I get to this new village and we form a group that would observe, celebrate all of that, emancipation. And the identical struggle I talked about is what happened. Because we realized that they're calling this thing August Monday. And we were horrified because we realized that the emphasis was upon a jamboree, not about recalling our ancestors' struggle and understanding what happened there, why it happened, and so on. So we demanded that the government change the holiday from the first Monday after the 1st of August to the day itself, the 1st of August. And that if the 1st of August falls on a weekend, Saturday or Sunday, it's only then the following Monday would be a holiday, and it would be called Emancipation Day. So it's very important for us to compare notes and to see how our people are doing the same struggles in different parts of the small part of the world we call the Caribbean. To me, this means that there should be more communication among us. We should be more aware of what each other is doing and are planning to do. And I think this is perhaps a hint to the alliance that we should seek to form at least contacts with other people. Thank you.
Brother Bapure, I constantly emphasize on the fact, that's my fact, my reality. You always speak about the Gross Institute as the first academic structure in the network. I dare say it is the first in the whole of Europe to identify a similar structure and institution here in Europe. But aside of that question, what are your experiences over the years as you take on that task to establish such a self-owned academic structure. Could you share some of the experiences
as
and the importance of it?
As a trained journalist who dabbles in research, I dare not say that we are the only one, because that could be challenged easily. You may say it, I'll leave it to you to say it. I accept the honor of you saying it. I'm not sure if there's others. I'm sure there's a need for others. Just like how you took the initiative, we took the initiative to do this event today, take it to another level, do another, bring new narratives. It has to start somewhere. And we decided to start, to be the ones who start. And hopefully others will pick up where we always shoot for the moon, right? And if you don't reach, still among the stars. So, yeah. As to your second question, I think my response would be that I personally took it as a personal task a few years ago. The gentleman over there was talking about how he learned a lot about himself when he moved to the Netherlands. I learned a lot about myself when I moved to the Netherlands. I lived in St. Martin for 15 years. I grew up in Suriname in a very Eurocentric system. I encountered racism throughout my life, but the racism and the lack of opportunities, having a university level journalism degree, having 5 journalism awards and still not being able to find a job in journalism when you reach the Netherlands. Those things make you realize that there's a lot of work to do. So I took it on as a personal task to put my journalist expertise to work, to in journalism bring new narratives. And when we saw the need to also do that in education and in research, we also took that on as a task. It's an uphill battle, but fortunately, I love walking uphill. So I'm enjoying it. Did I answer your question? My pleasure.
One of the other ladies, not ladies, but I put a lot of emphasis today on the stage about not only complexity of politics, okay, could you all hear me now? Thank you. About the complexity of politics and the understanding of it, but more importantly, the empowerment of it in regard to the community. What would you say would be so significant if we reach to that level to have our community more equipped and empowered to understand the games of politics?
Well, politics is where decisions are made. It's where money is distributed. And I feel like in the Netherlands we don't know a lot about the islands. It's my first time to be here on Statia, and I didn't know a lot about where I was going. So being here was quite a journey where I learned a lot, and it's an honor to sit here with all these experts in different fields. And I think the politics in the Netherlands also have a job to be curious and to want to learn about Statia and the other islands. So I think the community has the job to provide that information. I think this program here today was very important And I'm thinking, since Marvin is a journalist, maybe there's a way we can document all the things that were said here so it is accessible to a public, also in the Netherlands. Uphill battles, exactly.
We are documenting as we speak. Everything we are talking about is being documented.
Yes, but it also has to be distributed to the Netherlands, to the other islands, so we know about each other as well.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. We call it community science or community information. So everything we are doing, recording, documenting, is going to be out there for the public. Yes. Yeah. And then I'll go to Mr. Burko. Yeah.
Yes, I have a question for Natalie and for Papa. Because, yes, I have a question for Natalie, the politician, because sitting here, I was wondering who she was. Who are you? And so we Googled you. And on the Google page, you know that you're a politician. And so my question to you is, but you answer a part of it, you know, how are you experiencing what has the impact been for you for today, and what is your take back? So it was kind of ironic that you mentioned to the journalists that you guys have to, you know, create a package, a journalism package, or information package to take back to the training camp, or the ministries to inform them, because, you know, they come here a lot. And they have a lot of visits, they come, you know, but when they come, the people of Statia speaks to them, and it's like, yes, we hear, we see, but it's like when they go back to the Netherlands where they can actually do the work, it's like everything has been forgotten. It's like, who are they? Who is Statia? All those people who just lie in the sun all day and do nothing and put up their hand asking for monies. You understand? So I was happy to hear that you're open to make a move, to share your experience today with the politicians back in the Netherlands. So thank you for that. Also, one more question, because I was supposed to ask about this question, because the part about it being difficult for our ancestors after Emancipation Day, because it's a big thing leading up to Emancipation, the fight what our ancestors went through, but then when they were emancipated, what was next? We talk about jollification, we talk about the partner hand, which happens today, the wake happens today, but somewhere in between your story, you mentioned something about that our ancestors did not have access to credit. They didn't have access to credit. So I'd like some clarification about that, because we all know that as Black people here in the Caribbean, we love to credit. So where did that behavior come from if it didn't start back in the day? Did you create your own credit facilities, or what happened there? Where's the link from not having access to it to now only using credit if it was up to us to get credit alone, we will credit every day? So that's my question to you.
Yeah, I can be very short. I think I learned a lot, but what I'm taking back to the politics in the Netherlands is probably the need for funding. I think you have a very strong community here who has ideas, who wants to empower the community more and more, but there is a lack of funding, and I think the Netherlands can play a part in that.
Yeah, so of course initially our ancestors had no access to credit, right? After a while they got access to credit, but you must, I think in the scripture you say a borrower is a slave to the lender, right? So slowly, and by the way, the lender knows that the borrower is a slave. So
if you really check the system, credit was used as a form of oppression. Let me just show you. When emancipation came, the slave masters, the former slave owners, they developed a credit system where they would advance money to the former enslaved people, but in such a way that they kept them, it's going over and over, so you never get out of it, you see? So, but this is a new day, and we now know that how credit is being used, and at least those of us who are here, and it's for us to educate our people so that they understand that credit it's a tool, and if you allow yourself to be controlled by it, you become a slave to the lender.
Yes. Sister, I chuckled a bit when you said something. There's nothing, no disrespect, because I admire your courage in coming here. But the reality is, it's not that they don't see, nor they don't hear. But we will support you in any move that you make in carrying the message, because they see, they don't listen, and I have the feeling they don't care. But we applaud your initiative, and we hope that in your journey you will realize, as the gentleman was saying earlier, it is an uphill battle. To the question of borrowing, I happen to be in a panel with a former MP of St. Martin, and he was looking up for some information, and he looked at when the St. Martin came out of the Netherlands Antilles. And when they did, they said St. Martin owed 700,000 guilders under the former Netherlands Antilles. CFT is put in place now to control and make sure you don't have any access, you'll be controlling your spending. And St. Martin now owes almost 2 billion. To who? To who? And Statia is borrowing and lending and lending and lending, and we realize the environment and the climate and the laws and everything are changing. Based on what you just said, we become a slave again. So this emancipation thing, again, where the chain's coming off, I see the governor willingly put on a chain, no pun intended, you understand? But when you willingly put on a chain, and you really willingly, because the only person that all of these former Netherlands Antilles islands can borrow from is the Netherlands. And every one of them are in debt today, and always they have to ask for a skeleton budget just to get by.
Thank you, Mr. Woodley. The credit, emancipation, maybe I'm kind of illiterate, because up until now I don't know the real definition of what we call emancipation in realistic sense in relation to African people. Credit is another form of a necessary illusion whereof economically you're being enslaved. And I say that on the nose that we are crediting from whom? And by the time you end up going to your grave, your siblings have to pay their credits too. It's like some people tend to say, and make this analogy with slavery or enslavement from the West. Brother Kimani explained that this morning. I'm not going to go all through that. Yes, you could have owed somebody some debt, and until you pay that person a debt, you had certain conditions. But you were still a person with rights, human rights. And so you cannot compare it. But enslavement of the West is in the Latin word in perpetuity, which means to say, the same thing goes back to the credit. You're being enslaved. Your children remain enslaved. The credit system is a similar enslavement. So when would we become less dependent on credit from the colonial powers and their legacy, which continue to persist? Yes. Yes.
The discussion is going in a very interesting direction, and I think Charles kind of triggered it, and you linked it to the politician. We are here talking about Emancipation Day. We are talking about the credit system. Can we really continue to have this discussion without addressing the political structure that we are in? Because we are talking emancipation. We are a public entity. Let's be real, in a public entity there's no democracy. Democracy does not exist in a public entity. So I think part of what's missing in this discussion is the construct in which we are operating, and I don't think that we are touching on that enough. So I'm looking at you because you are one of the representatives in the national government. We have no representation no direct representation in the national government. We are dependent on people on the outside to create laws for us. We are dependent on environmental experts from the Netherlands, who, by the way, have a totally different value system than we do. I heard Brother Kimani talk about the fact that when we look at traditional Africa, we respected the environment, we had our values, and now we have, no disrespect, persons from the Netherlands with their own value systems, with their own norms and values and laws, coming to stations to teach stations about the environment and about the law. So basically what I'm trying to say, what's missing here is the constitutional and the political structure in which we are operating. We can't have that discussion of emancipation without addressing that as well.
This little island was fallen under the colonial powers, but yet we were self-sufficient. We used to export food to the neighboring island. As a matter of fact, we used to export food to our own Curacao. I beg your pardon? But why is it not happening anymore? Well, you can blame importing, but again, the man goes on the ground rotting. But yet we go in the shop and buy the crab. We have our fowls which we grow up on, and we call the fowls nasty. The Chinese pay your children $5 to catch the same fowl, eat them, but you are going in his supermarket and buying the junk food. You don't like Chinese. You know? Well, we wasn't educated that way. We were having our chicken and our eggs.
Nothing was imported.
Well, that's another discussion. But coming back to Sister Siamala, the structures which we need, well, there will be the same colonial structures. The only structure that I see, and take our brother Abraham Dory right now, who took back African wealth. How many of us are talking negatively about him? But at the end of the day, I think that is the only solution we need to contemplate on and come together. The French are right now suffering economically, although they would not admit to that. But since he drove them out of the country and producing, it's a whole different ballgame. So we need to look at what we have too, because a lot of things here on the island miss, we can actually be self-sufficient in. And we are poisoning ourselves daily with the junk shit which we buy in the supermarket. But again, maybe we need to re-educate our community. To re-educate. So I would like to wrap up and ask the panelists if they have any closing word. Yes? Yeah.
I wanted to ask Mr. Merkel. Can I find it?
Mr. Merkel, are you hot? Is the weather hot to you? Are you sweating? Alright. You bought something from me yesterday. Fan, even though you're not hot. You bought it because you wanted to support. That's what you told me. That's the mindset we need to get back. Can I use the word unlearning yesterday? It's a word that I love to learn, that I love to use. Because we need to unlearn a lot of things. We need to help people to unlearn a lot of things. We need to pump new information into their heads. Relearn. So that was, it doesn't have anything to do with what you said maybe, but I just wanted to, in fact, appreciate what you did yesterday, because it's what we need to continue to do with each other, support each other, so we don't need others. We need to support each other. Right?
Thank you for that. Although me and Mr. Bertel got a little secret in between there for that.
You think what you're saying there, right? The product itself. As long as we make the product, it can be sold. But if we don't make the product, then the Lebanese and the Chinese and everybody, then we have to, you see. So this is the thing that social working, I think it's something like that. Social working, networking, not social working, networking. So we have a lot of learned people, but then we're mostly working for the corporation. Okay? So unless they don't synchronize, and this is what, like I said earlier, about the two professors, and if you listen to the information on which I'll say to the libation, and you see how everybody was so intrigued because it changed and put them to question, right? Whether they will take it in, but at least it's a conversation going to be had. So to what you said about the fan, but there's got other elements to it. But at the end of the day, like I said, if we could have we own stuff, just like you, I heard that have your own publishing, and if they can use your own, you could hire other sources.
I want to tell you a quick story, and I want to leave, I want to go to my hotel and shower, but I'm going to tell you a quick story. The king, I'd say the king did, he gave apologies a few years back, and he made funds available. I'm simplifying it because I want to say that he gave the money. My foundation received some money from him to do a postgraduate course in September, and I'm doing this in collaboration with a Ghanaian university, right? So I was there in Ghana a few months back, and I gave the director of the university a sum of money as partner university that we're working with. And he just pushed the money away without realizing how much money it was. So I explained to him after that if the Jews get money, the money stays in the community. How many days, Natalie? Jews, money, 7 days? How long does money stay in the Jewish community? How long does it circulate?
Eating forever.
Because they have the system. The money continues to circulate. In the Indian community, in the Chinese community, the same thing. In the black community, when we get money, it's gone within a few hours. So I made him realize that me giving him that money, and he told me when I gave him the money, he told me I'm using this money to fix my roof. I'm calling the electrician to do this and this, to do that. And I explained to him how much his statement about the electrician meant to me, because it meant that the money that the king gave me would stay in Africa forever, right? Because he would pay the electrician would pay somebody else would pay somebody else. I practice what I preach. I preach black economics. I'm not an economist like this gentleman here, but I do practice it. And I think we should practice it more so we don't need others. Again, there's 1.7 billion of us. That's a B, not an M. Billion of us on this earth. And we don't seem to realize it. So I wanted to thank you because the little fan that you bought, I bought it from a lady all the way in Ghana. And I took it here and you bought it. So you made sure that she can make another fan. So when I go back, I can sell too. See what I mean? So I wanted to appreciate you for that.
Well, thank you, Brother Kimani, Professor Kimani, Dr. Kimani.
I'm about to publish a book on a rebellion in Guyana in 1905. And part of the introduction, I think, is relevant to our discussion today. And so I'm going to quote you a few paragraphs of the introduction. It says that a rebellion, like a revolution, is a process. It's not an event. It begins not with the first brick or stone that's thrown against the window of our oppressors. It begins in the nature of things and in the mind of people. If we do not understand the system that oppresses us, then we cannot fight it effectively, or as effectively as we need to. And in some of our conversations here today, it seems to me as though we need to put things together. We are oppressed by a system that will damage any attempt at an independent existence. And it's important that we recognize that. Whether you're talking about psychologically, you're talking educationally, you're talking economically, it doesn't matter in which aspect of reality. The fact that our ancestors couldn't get credit on this island should not be surprising to us. It was the same wherever we were. In Guyana, immediately after the legal termination of some aspects of enslavement, that some of us mistake for emancipation and call it that, African people established a large number of cooperative villages, which was part of a larger idea of an independent civilizational existence based on humanity, different from the barbarism that was organized by Western Europeans on the plantations. One of the ways in which the retail trade that our people established in Guyana was defeated, suppressed, was not to give credit, or to give credit with very short periods in which to pay back, and with high percentage interest rate. Now, there are other aspects of that system of oppression, but it's up to us to study these things and understand. The next step is to design our own independent system, which must include, and this is what we're talking about, a circular economy. It's not going to come overnight, but we must understand what we're aiming at. We're aiming at providing all goods and services that our community needs. And we are aiming at an independent or a semi-independent existence of anybody else, including a government, even when that government contains some of our own people. Not that there may be bad actors on, but you cannot put your trust in any organization that you do not control. And this is the meaning of independence. We've got to build an alternative existence in which we do for ourselves. I hope I put some things.
I would like to thank everyone. I thought you were tired, brother, Dr. King, but we reached the point where we have to wrap it up. So go ahead, I'll give you the word, and then we will wrap it up.
You saw it, okay. No, I'm not going to stay long. I don't have a long statement. I just want to thank everybody for participating, for being here in this team, but also in the audience. And we hope that what we showed today together with you will lead to fruits in the future. And Jamal said something very important. It shouldn't be just today and then next year should begin. We have to look for a system, something that will be continuous contact, continuous education being put into the system that we can teach and learn from each other. So once again, thanks a great deal for being part of our education.
Thank you. Sister Siamala, if you will be brief.
No, I was trying to get the word in, but in a room, in a panel with a lot of men, you know, sometimes that's difficult. But anyway, Brother Marvin, I want to speak directly to you and also to Brother Zimmerman. I want to thank you for what you proposed. You observed what was happening in the room, and you said to me, Shumara, I think we need to go out with an intensive media campaign, communication in regards to the reburial. And then you told me, you know where to find me. So if we're talking black economics, we're talking bartering system, this is it. So I'm going to take you up on that offer because I do realize that there is a lot of ignorance, and I do realize that we need to bring more information to the forefront. Brother Zimmerman was not able to speak. He's sitting here, but I do want to turn to him, and I want to also thank you. He is the architect that we contracted to work on this project, but it has become more than a project for you because you paid your own ticket. You are staying here on your own cost because you are passionate about this. And what this says is that it is not always about money. We have a lot of knowledge and we have talent, and if we could sometimes share those talents without asking for money, because we don't always have the means, I think we can accomplish much. So I do want to thank you, Zimmerman in particular, and I want to thank you also, Brother Marvin, for bringing forward that suggestion. And that is what I wanted to communicate.
Thank you, Sister Siamala. And I will allow and give Brother Zimmerman to have his closing remarks as well.
You know, I'm very thankful that I did not get into that part of the discussion about politics. Because if I do that, I think it's gonna go out of hand. It will be rough. It will be hard. So I rather stick to my designing, architecture, and those kind of stuff. That's my expertise. That's what I dominate most. And that part of politics, I mean, as
only after 20 years in St. Martin, when I went back home, I decided to affiliate myself to a political party. And I chose that party because they are aiming at total independence. Real total independence, that's what we're aiming at. As for myself, I'm longing the day that we don't have to look at none of those colonizers. For me, the decolonization process is taking way too long. Everybody looking at Europe, everybody looking at Holland. There must come a day where we are completely on our own, doing on our own stuff, whether we do it wrong, good, bad, or whatever we do it. But no, it's taking too much time. So thank you all. Sister Shumara, don't worry. I gladly take it again to come back, because I'm part of this and I want to see our ancestors being put back into the ground. Thank you all.
Okay, your applause. And before I wrap and close it, I would like, because most time there's people behind the scene which we give the recognition in the puzzle, in bringing the day together. The alliance was supposed to have a lead in this, but without all of the other pieces of the puzzle, it could not be done. So I would like to give Brother Taro Montman the opportunity to say a few words as to what he's been doing on the ground and making this puzzle became a total puzzle.
Thank you, Brother Kavuli. This has been a journey. You know, this change is the hardest thing, especially if you've been accustomed to going this way. It's the hardest thing, but it's also the hardest thing to see something and unsee it. So it's a very tricky thing. And I must say, through all what we go through, all what we have, all the struggle, all the fight, all the pain, all the everything, we have one mission in going, we're sticking forward and going through it all. We know it's not the easiest of tasks. It's something that we have to keep on going regardless. Because if we stop, we right back to the same thing. So we have to break this cycle. Someone said to me, Tara, you're planting a seed. Now, I just come out of agriculture too as well. Now, if you're building a forest, you're gonna plant your fruit trees, your shade trees, because they take the longest time, right? Now, I'm saying, no, we're not planting any seeds anymore. There are people before us that planted those seeds. So if we keep planting those same seeds, it's just a circle keep going on. Right? Now we need to make sure we're nourishing those trees that were planted before us. And we keep going. Now we plant the fast crops. So to what Dr. Zimmerman just said, that's going to speed up the process instead of us keep doing the same thing. Now we plant the fast crops and we keep going. So that's my message now. We're not planting any seeds anymore. We're planting the fast crop and we're going to make the decolonization process quicker than anything. That's my message.
Thank you. And on behalf of the St. Eustatius Afrikan Diaspora Alliance and their members, I would like to commend and give recognition to all of the additional organizations, the Heritage Committee, the St. Eustatius Festival Foundation, the Tourist Bureau Foundation, the Monument Foundation of St. Eustatius, the Historical Foundation of St. Eustatius, and all of our brothers and sisters here, Sister Shiamada, Sister Natalie, Brother Zimmerman, and Brother Papa Umbu, who I had the pleasure to meet somewhere in the shadow sometime in the past in St. Martin. Brother Adler Kane, who we know for donkey years. Same goes for Dr. Brother Professor Kimani. Hope he's not sleeping. And Brother Atwell, our Brother Bapuri. Thank you all for your contributions. Thank the audience for your input, togetherness, and also your contribution. Thank the technicians, Mr. Kota, and his technology and everything. Much thanks and appreciation. All of you who like to drink rum and dance from 6 o'clock up until 10, this stage will be full of different musicians to entertain you all. I beg your pardon? And I know that. So I want to bring out special thanks to my nephew, who's constantly doing all of the recording and preserving the data which we create voluntarily. In many ways, he's always there. Never tired or weary to come out and do his part. Lano, much thanks and appreciation for your patience, your togetherness, and everything. Much thanks to everyone. Have a pleasant evening.